Hi everyone, I'm going to start a series called Building a SaaS with SaasRock. I want to build my own SaaS for Mexican companies, and I'm going to use SaasRock as the framework for building it. So this is day one. We're currently on July 7th, and I want to clear some things before starting. This will not be a coding tutorial, Remix related or Tailwind CSS related. I'll add everything I need to SaasRock's codebase. And this application's code, when it's ready, will be available for enterprise users, but I will remove some of the code, so it's not 100% a copycat. And this can be delayed or canceled because I have a job. So what are we building this month? The features will be for Mexican taxpayers. Basically, I want my users to receive emails, and I will get XML files and convert them to invoices. I'm going to use sat.ws, which is a service for connecting to Mexico's IRS type. As you can see here, I create credentials based on the taxpayer ID with their password. We can create invoices, but I will use just, I don't know, about 10 web services. And we're going to build also an expense receipt tracker where users can upload their receipts, and maybe a few features more, but this is basically it. So to start, I have a private repo, which is on the latest release of SaasRock version 0.3.3, and I set up a remote upstream. You can check it out on the docs. Basically, you add your origin and then the upstream to SaasRock, and then remove the push to the upstream. This is how it will look on your environment. And with Git Pull Upstream from the main branch, you get the latest releases, changes, I mean. So this is how it looks on my project. Here I have two VS Code projects. This is SaasRock. So if we're going to pull the recent releases, we're going to run Git Pull Upstream main. And right now it's already up to date. Of course, I will be breaking a lot of things. So I'm sorry about that because I know it's a pain to merge changes and verify each file by file. But if I want to add a lot of more features, I need to do this without not breaking changes in mind. We don't have a migration or a database right now. We're going to create that in a second. So the first thing that I'm going to do is removing the sample entities, which are contracts and employees. So I'm going to see the seed file. Well, before that, I want to show you how it looks on the Git changes. So I basically removed these seed sample entities, which are, by the way, I added yesterday attributes to some entities. For example, text attribute tests. I have a field with pattern, with min length, max length, default value, hint text, help text. You can log in or create an account at SaasRock.com and see all these tests. For example, text attribute test, you will go to create a new one, and here I validate that it's an email. You can add your own pattern. Let me see how it looks on the admin side. Show advanced options, and this is the pattern for email. So you can test this by typing anything and type in an actual email. Min length, max length, default value, hint text, help text, placeholder with an icon, rows, uppercase, lowercase, and there's tests for numbers, dates, simple select, boolean, and media files or media. So back to our application. We removed the sample entities, contracts and employees, and the attribute tests. We are going to create a model with a row foreign key. We're going to use a row, which is an entity builder, a custom entity row. So we can track, for example, logs, permissions, and all that. So this on the Prisma schema file will look like this. So we have a taxpayer, which has a row as foreign key, and the taxpayer ID, the name, the zip code, which is nullable, the tax regime, and the credentials. We get through this in another video, but basically taxpayer credentials, we're going to use this. I'm going to use this API, creating a credential. So next, we're going to seed the default entity and fields or properties. We can do that on the admin side as well, but each time we delete the database, we will have to create again and again and again. So it's better to do it once. So we're going to say that this model, which is taxpayer, is a feature, meaning that if users create an account, I meant sign up, right here, pricing. It will say like this, I don't know, I will have to decide that when the application is ready, but for example, 1 taxpayer for the free plan, 2 taxpayers for the standard plan, and 3 or 5 or 10 taxpayers for the enterprise plan. So it will be a feature. It will not have tags, tasks, comments, and a workflow, because this is like the top layer entity. We will use tags, tasks, and comments and workflow maybe for the expense receipts or for the invoices. By the way, I will not create invoices. I will just validate existing ones using this API. So some based core properties for the taxpayer will be taxpayer ID, name, and tax regime, as we saw on the model. And we need to set this as custom properties for the custom entity. So on the seed, we will have this seed core entities function, where I see the CRM, which is the world's simplest CRM. And here I have a create core entity. So we will give them a name, an internal name as log, taxpayers, title, taxpayer, and title plural, taxpayers, and a prefix. It will now have tags, comments, and a workflow. This icon, you can use a URL or an SVG. I'm going to copy and paste on Jake Archibald page and paste it. This is the icon I'm using for taxpayers. And the properties will be a taxpayer ID as for the end users. It will be type text. It will not be dynamic, meaning that on the schema is hard coded. And the attributes, this is one of the things that changed yesterday. We have all these new attributes. Let me see on the schema. It's called property attributes. We have a pattern that applies only to text fields, a min and max for text, number, and media, a step for number fields, a rows for text fields, default value for all these, max size. But anyway, you can test this on SaasRock.com, as I told you, on text attribute test, number attribute test, and so on. So where were we? We're on the attributes definition for the taxpayer ID field. It will have a mean of 12 characters and a max of 13. It will be uppercase, and this is the pattern that is used for taxpayer IDs for Mexican companies. And we will also have a name which will be uppercase, and a tax regime, which is a type of select, and the default value is this one. We have all these predefined by the government tax regimes. And finally, a zip code that is not required, but has a minimum of 4 and a maximum of 5 characters, and it's number only. So let's go ahead and create our first migration. And while this is running, because I'm going to run npm runs dev, I want to show you that I've added 3 files, which are basically a copy of the current entity auto-generated pages. So for each entity, we have an rows view, a create view, and an overview or details view. So as you can see, this is a small file because it inherits or applies these functions: loader, row, edit, where I pass them the entity. The entity is right here as a variable, but for the taxpayers, I added them here. Let's take a look. I am manually passing the taxpayers because I want to be able to customize this in the future if I want. So this won't be dynamic, but we're using the default rows view route. We will see that in a second. Let's run the application. Oh, by the way, you also need to set certain environment variables at this point. For example, the Stripe secret key, your support email, your postmark server token, your postmark from email, your not right now this inbound email variable, and this is also optional. So the required are Stripe and postmark to send forgot password emails, welcome emails, and so on. Next month I'll implement whichever comes first on this discussion. SMTP, SendGrid, postmark, yeah. The top most voted by the end of July, I will implement on next month. So back to the application, I'm going to log in as my admin user, which is set on these 2 environment variables, admin email and admin password, and the user is created when you seed your application for the first time. Here, create user, admin. Well, also I changed the logo and the icon. You can change it with these 4 files: icon dark, icon light. Since I'm not going to use a dark mode version because I want this to be as fast as possible, I won't use the dark mode icons. So let's log in as the admin user, and let's try, well, since I set already my Stripe secret key, I can create my plans and I can test my application. Here, taxpayer. So users will now be able to set their taxpayer ID. My company taxpayer ID is this one, and the name is ABSIS SSM, and the tax regime could be one of these. And finally, the zip code, which is optional, but let's say my house/office. We have a problem on the request format, so I'm going to fix that by removing the pattern for now until I see what's the problem. maybe this was an email pattern, I didn't notice. So let's refresh this page, and what's default visibility? So get default visibility, type rows, taxpayer. Okay, so we have a problem. I'm going to pause and see what it is. Okay, so I found the problem. Let's see here. It says that we are getting an error on creating a row, and it says, did you mean taxpayers? Which basically is telling us that on the row model, we have a taxpayers property, but it shouldn't be this. A row should be tied to one taxpayer only, just like the deal or a contract. So let's remove this taxpayer relation and move it. Well, we can leave it there, but this should be taxpayer, which this is tied to the name that we give to our custom entity on the seat here. And this is optional. So, by the way, this is not the correct pattern. Let's remove it since we are going to remove our database. First, let's stop the server and delete dev and migrations and run another the seating and start the application again. So this time we should be able to create a taxpayer. So let's refresh this. And again. Okay, so we have another error. Let me think, what is the problem? I believe that the entity was created, but let me inspect the problem. Okay, I forgot another crucial thing that should be on the when you're working on with the custom entity. On the rows database.server file, we have the get row. As you can see here, it includes the row details. We need to include the recently added property, which is taxpayer. So we will say right here that we will include taxpayer as well. So let's save this file and refresh this. And there you go. And since I have the, let's create another one first before filtering. Let's change just the last number. And this will be like this. Okay, so we're still getting this error, and I believe it is related to the IDs. Let me check, but it was actually created. And if we go to the details, it's visible. So I think the error is on this ID. Let me check again. Okay, so I found the other error. So when I created these three files, taxpayers, taxpayers new, taxpayers ID, I need to tell them that, for example, for the taxpayers new, when I create a new row of type taxpayers, this parameter is entity rows route, but this one is using the params to get the current entity, but we don't have the entity param right here. So I forgot that this should be just like, well, this could be null. No, not null, like the contacts ID, which is a CRM entity, where I have this URL. So we're gonna set that in a second. So instead of using this function, which is get the current entity based on the URL, which needs a entity params, we can use this one, get current tenant URL, where the URL is conformed by the /app with the tenant, and if we pass a path, it will direct to that. So we can use current tenant URL and pass the taxpayers. And let's do this also here. And let's see if we have, tenant URL on the edit taxpayers, which is the, as you can see here, is the entity rouse route. This is basically /app/the tenant/taxpayers. And we don't need this here since this is the rows view itself. So let's try creating another entity tree. I mean taxpayer tree. And let's say this is like this. And there we have it. So this is our base model for the application that I want to build, which I need. So I believe the next video will be about receiving emails and converting them to XMLs. Maybe this part will not be in the video because it's too application focused on this case, but receiving emails per user will be helpful. So keep in mind that I will add this to the core. I'll try to add this to the core. I don't know if it's possible with Postmark. Maybe I'll try another way. But this code is will not be to SaasRock's core. But what I mean by receiving emails is currently there you can receive emails on the admin side with this, which is pretty simple. I've done some tests. This is my inbound address, so if I send an email here, I will receive them via a webhook, which on the application is inbound routes webhooks email. If it's post, I get the Postmark webhook, and I'll use this to receive emails, but on the application side for my users, not for my admins only. So this should change something like the name of the application, SaasRock.com, and the name of the tenant, or maybe keeping no, I believe each tenant should have their own inbox. So yeah, I hope you like this mini tutorial. I'm pretty excited to build this month. I hope making videos don't delay me, and keep in mind that this can be delayed or canceled because I have a full-time job, and SaasRock, I wanted to be a full-time gig, but yeah. So let me know if you want to see a specific thing on future videos. Thanks.